This is the award is named the Innovative Marketer Award. Can everybody hear me back there okay? Sometimes I worry about these things. I don't do lunchtime talks here. I tell people that. There are reasons for that. I'm not much of a lunchtime talker. The award is called the Innovative Marketer Award. So I presume it has something to do with marketers who have had some kinds of innovations. Much of my work has had implications for marketing theory. So I presume, although I was never told, that the award is based on certain innovative aspects of marketing theory. Can you hear me back there? No. Can't hear me. You do this thing, don't you? That's a shame. Those of you that know me, I don't do this. I normally walk around a lot. I've never given a presentation sitting down. I refuse to give a presentation sitting down. I would never. I've been at conferences where 3 speakers in a row sat down and talked, and I stood up and I said, I won't do that. And after that, then everybody stood up. Much of my work is involved one way or another with marketing theory. And I did indeed say, did you have occasion to read my marketing theory book to someone? And I'd like to tell you a quick story about what's called the Little Green Book. The Little Green Book was the very first version of marketing theory. It was 150 pages long. And it took me 2 years to write it. And everyone at Wisconsin at the time told me I was crazy for doing something like that. And I told them, well, I enjoy it. I think philosophy of science has something to offer. And I wanted to put it into a monograph form for my students. So I did. And then there have been several different versions of the book published since then. Several years ago, I was at a conference, and it was a joint conference with management and others. And we were at a cocktail party, and I was standing there, and had a name tag on, and this gentleman comes up, and he looks at my name tag, and he says, "You." Just like that. "You." And I said, "Well, yes." And he said, "You are responsible for the worst semester of my entire life." So I said, "It sounds like you had to read my marketing theory book." He said, "Yes, and it was the most difficult book I have ever read in my entire life, and I hope to never have to read a book that difficult again." I said, "I'm sorry." After that, though, we did have he did admit he felt he learned a lot, which made me feel good. It may have been difficult for him, but he learned a lot. Today, what I'd like to talk about, I don't give lunchtime talks. Today, what I want to talk about is creating successful theories. Now, the whole notion of what constitutes a successful theory is certainly in dispute. As I've mentioned to people, my criterion, personal criterion, is that I think a work is successful of mine if it's used in doctoral seminars. If it's used in doctoral seminars in the education process of our young to-be faculty, I feel that's a success. But there are other metrics for success, and I'm going to start off with some of those metrics. Okay, which one is that? This one. Get back. I'm not high-tech either, by the way. I have one transparency that's in color in all my teaching. And I always tell my students the same thing. I say, this, by the way, for this course, is high-tech. A transparency in color. What I'm going to do is talk about why are some theories successful and others are not so? How come some theories get widely cited and others kind of wither on the vine? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a particular theory of mine, resource advantage theory, and we'll talk about why I believe it has been as successful as it has been, and then we'll try to draw some guidelines from that as to how to develop successful theories. Now, with all the caveats that are normally done with case research, of course, I'm going to take an instance of one theory and draw some generalizations, and I hope you will forgive me for doing so. Resource advantage theory, by most of the metrics that we would commonly use, has been very successful. There have been over 1,000 citations to the original 3 articles developing the theory in the journal Marketing. That is Hunt and Morgan, 1995, our response to a comment in 1996, and our response to another comment in 1977. Well over 1,000 citations to those 3 articles. Normally in academia, 100 citations is considered to be a very successful article. This has been cited over 1,000 times. If you put, quote, resource-advantage theory, quote, into Google, you'll get over 60,000 hits. Now you must put the quotes in. Otherwise you get all that resource-based stuff from strategic management, and I don't want it. I want it to be, if you want just the ones that are talking about the theory, particular theory that Rob Morgan and I proposed in 1995, put the quotes around it. So do quote resource-advantage theory, and you'll get over 60,000 citations. And the question is, how come? How come it's been so successful? So, here we go. Here are the factors, I think, that explains why it's been successful. First of all, it addresses important issues in both macro marketing and micro marketing. That is, this is not just one, does X influence Y? This is not one more little study on a particular tiny sliver of marketing. If you look at most of our journals today, even our major journals, the articles that are doing relatively small kinds of issues and topics. This article, Hunt and Morgan 1995, The Development of Resource Advantage Theory, looks at some very important issues. For example, what's the fundamental nature of competition? What is it? Why do firms differ so radically in financial performance? How come? Why are most market-based economies more abundant than command economies? Would it surprise you to know that the standard answer to that question in neoclassical economics is command economies, according to our theories and our equations, command economies ought to be more efficient, more effective, more productive, more abundant than market-based economies. I'm going to say that again. If you learn nothing from this little presentation other than what I'm just going to say, it ought to be worth your punch. The standard interpretation of the equations of neoclassical economics by neoclassical economists themselves who specialize in comparative economics is that the equations of neoclassical economics imply that command economies ought to be at least as efficient and effective, at least as productive as market